Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Jannike, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. This is the place where we are discussing everything within human potential, personal development, self-empowerment, awakening spirituality, and so much more. And today you're going to meet the gifted Starseed channeler, Tiffany Tin. Tiffany is an international healer, a mystic teacher. She has led over 250 workshops and events, and she's also one of our masterclass teachers in Wisdom from North membership, where she's teaching the class Meet Your Starseed Selves and Connect with Your Cosmic Guides. And you can read all about the membership and the class below. Now, today we're going to go galactic. We're going to speak about different extraterrestrial races, the Akashic Records, and so much more. So let's meet Tiffany. Hello, Tiffany. A warm welcome. How are you?
Hi, Annika and everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here again today.
I'm super excited to be able to dive into these topics that we're going to explore today. I don't always do it on my channel, but I wanted to give focus to this topic as well, also in my membership. And I loved your masterclass. It's so rich. You're going through so many different races and different beings that I didn't even know about. And I think that to some, it might feel a bit foreign, this topic, but I've always had that heart for everything galactic, like I've been longing up to the stars and feeling like I'm not totally at home here. So I think it's an important topic to address. And you're truly an expert on this. I've seen on your YouTube channel, you have so much material there. In the masterclass, you just covered so much. So I can't wait to dive deep to.
Thank you, Annika. You're too kind. I try. I'm always learning more every day.
Of course, we all are. So what I found interesting that I wanted to start with today was actually a race, an alien or extraterrestrial race, or, there's so many names for this, called the Venusians. Well, they come from Venus, and lately I've dived into the law of one, the raw material. That's channel material, beautiful material that I highly recommend. We're actually also going to have a masterclass. Oh, here you go. Right, there you go. Yeah, and so Ra it comes from Venus. They are saying they're six-dimensional beings. So when you started to speak about this race in the masterclass, I got very curious. They seem very heart-centered, and they seem like they can be sort of a role model for humans. So who are they, and what is their message for us?
Yes, so Venusians, there have been many contacts with Earth, and in fact, Venus was known as the twin planet. And if you guys go into it, when you look into the orbit of Earth and Venus together, they create this five-petal flower. And you can just Google Venus Earth orbit and you can see it's almost like a perfect pentagon shaped flower. So Earth has always been very connected to Venus, and the Venusians have been watching over Earth and at times seated themselves on Earth for a very long time. And when it comes to understanding Venusians' work in contact with us, Law One is one really great material. There's a series of, I believe, 6 books that you can get. It's also free online, where you get to learn about the deep esoteric teachings of Venusians through the law of one. Now, there's also been actual physical contactee that I have met through online that have actually been in contact with the actual Venusians. And so names, for example, is Dr. Frank E. Stranger. So you guys can find his book online. It's called The Stranger at the Pentagon. He outlined his story of how he came in contact with a Venusian commander. named Valiant Thor, and his adventures and misadventures at times during his entire contact with Venusians. And I say misadventures because the Dark Ones don't want these to be disclosed. They don't want to be exposed. So a lot of the disclosure leaders out there, we really need to take a moment to thank them for putting themselves out there. And it's not easy, even as we're speaking about that, Yannicka and I, it makes us vulnerable, right? We're talking about parts that is ahead of our time, and it's very dear to us. So it really takes a lot of courage to bring these information out. Another really well-known researcher for Venusians is Raymond Andrew Keller, which I interviewed him on his on my YouTube as well. It's called Venus Rising, and his new book, Lady Columba, which is also another Venusian, has just been launched. So here's a few researchers, it's just off the top of my head, can really help you see into the evidence of Venusian contact with Earth, rather it be through channeled material like Law of One or actual contactee experience like Raymond and Rob, and also Dr. Frank E. Strangers as well. So their message for us is really for us to find the Christ consciousness within ourselves and to connect with Christ consciousness. And I know sometimes a lot of times religious programming have made us feel like religion and these stars being stuff is separate. But actually, the star beings themselves also work with Christ. They also work with Christ consciousness. So it doesn't make us that different. We're all working towards to create an environment of love and harmony, like Jesus Christ himself have come forth to brought this message to us so kindly. And so their message really, the Venus, planet of love, is so much about love. And when you are connecting with the Venusian energy, a lot of people, you might have met some of them already. You know, when you pass by these beings, you will feel happy, you all of a sudden feel joyous, or you all of a sudden just cry for no reason. They walk among us at times, and they are not as far away as we think they are.
Wow, I get so much questions right there. There's so much to dive into. Exciting. So when you say that they've had actually contact, how is that so? Because from what I understand, they reside in another dimension. So what sort of a contact is that? And when you're saying that they walk amongst us, is that on another plane that they walk amongst us, or are they physical sometimes, being able to visit us or in a physical vertical somehow?
Yes, so from my understanding, there are different ways that these higher dimensional beings can connect with us. So channeling is one, where you get into a trance meditation after your protection. If your higher self allows it, right, at the right time, then you get some connection with them. Most people get connection with them through feelings first. So you will feel that love, that light vibration, and slowly they open up your other senses more and more. They don't want to scare you. That's the last thing they want to do. And there's also ways of like first contact, which is actual physical contact. And that's what Raymond and Dr. E. Strangers and Rob Parter himself has seen the Venusians in person. So this, I don't know everything, but from my understanding is they can project themselves too into a form. It's kind of like Star Trek when they molecularize themselves and they can be in this plane with us. So there are many ways for them to be with us, channeling, first contact. And then at times when I'm reading these books, Dr. Eastern just say they can also connect with you through like your phone or the computer. One of the very interesting stories, Dr. Eastern just would be driving and then Valiant Thor would just pop up in his backseat and be like, "Hi, my friend." So they can like appear and have these godlike psychic abilities that we don't have in this third dimension, but we're all moving into this higher dimensional space where we can have these abilities back. but we need to purify ourselves. And that's what a lot of the work they talk about is purification, working with Christ, protection, and so forth.
Are they also working with, Hinduism and Buddhism? I'm just thinking about, since you're mentioning Christ, but is it also other types of religions or teachings that they're working?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Yannicka. I believe so. They didn't outline it in detail in these books, but I believe that when we would want to look back in the galactic history, when you look at Lemuria and Atlantis, they are all seeded by the star beings. So I had a video talking about Pleiadian, Venusian, and like Lemurian connection. There's other beings like Arcturians that have, be part of this project, Lemuria. So it's really complicated, but some of the materials in these books confirm those connections. Like Venusians working have seeded some of their people in Lemuria, and some of them still survive to this day. And some of them actually, I don't want to share too much from their books, but you can still find them within the, I think, European region. There's a certain bloodline that connects to the Venusian bloodline. So bloodline is one way where you can be connected, but other times it's through your soul. So an example is in the books, they say RN negative blood, right, has extraterrestrial origin. And but myself, I don't have Rh negative, but I can still connect with the galactic beings. So when we're talking about these topics, just make sure that you don't put yourself in a box to allow yourself to expand beyond what is told here. So feel into your heart and allow yourself to expand.
And we also always associate Venus with the feminine and Mars with the masculine. Is that what is your perspective on that? Why is that? Is that actually coming from something that it's, it is a more feminine planet and Mars is have been more like masculine power and
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, Yannicka. They actually talked about it in Venus Rising in this book. Raymond talked about the exoteric teachings from it. And even through my own understanding is Venus have already ascended. They're already in the higher plane. They have fifth density, and they are like way ahead of where we are now. So in itself, yes, Venus have a lot of that balance, feminine energy. And I also think why we associated that with that is because on Venus, they also call themselves planet of the bees. And the term was Abijah, if I pronounced it right. And they always have a queen that oversees Venus. So they're not, I guess the right word is ruled or facilitated by a queen. And you can learn about Lady Orda, which is the current queen of Venus, in these books. And they talked about her adventures with different government officials and the contactee themselves. And it's very, very, very interesting. And I would recommend anyone that's interested in Venus to order these books and read about them. And as for Mars have always been associated with, they're also very advanced. Like the Martians are also very advanced, very intellectual beings. Most of them, just generally speaking, like to invest their time and energy in scientific and technologies. So a lot of times that's why we associate Venus with the goddess, because they have a more feminine, queen bee energy, and Mars more like a technological, more masculine energy. So there's some basis behind that as well.
And obviously, they're not in our the same reality as we are because we cannot see them, but they reside in these different densities and dimensions.
From my understanding, yes. I believe there's also still lower density beings, maybe third density beings that can go to Mars and the moon and so forth. But from what I have been researching and first-hand channeling experience, Venus is more higher dimension. So the moon is also another interesting planet.
A lot going on there.
Yeah. There's a lot to learn about the moon, and
Ah,
yes. Mhm.
little bit.
Yeah, so the moon is, some people will call it a satellite. They like moons that surround another planet, and there's theories that our moon actually come from another section of the galaxy, and it was, what is it, brought to Earth. And on the moon itself, and this is through disclosure movement, you find a lot of people disclosing about the moon. On the dark side, there's a lot of bases. Most of the bases are underground, so we can't see them, but you can see NASA slowly releasing these disclosure like pictures of buildings on the moon, and a lot of ex-military personnel that are now whistleblowers will also talk about the moon being a military base, and a lot of the bases are inside. But the moon is very interesting because it's divided into section. There's negative beings on there, but positive beings like Arcturians and the Venusians as well have bases on the moon.
Wow. But again, are they physical? Could I meet them if I went to the moon, or would I have to channel them and see them?
Yes, yes, yeah, you can meet them on the moon. I do think they're in a higher dimension, so they might have to somehow either punch into our dimension to meet us, or they have to raise our vibration to meet them. But there's a lot of physical contact. Mm-hmm.
I want to move to the Akashic records, but before that, I would just want to ask you about the Greys. I feel like not that many are speaking about the Greys anymore, but everybody was speaking about them like 10 years ago. So, what is your perspectives on what happened? I mean, they had the rumors of being the bad guys that were abducting people.
Mm-hmm.
Know if I've ever been abducted, but I've had a horrible dream, I remember, that really frightened me with like some gray beings, and it felt very real. It was just so frightening. And I've also, when I was little, I was drawing alien beings. Like I have some drawings from when I was 4 years old, and I don't know, but that was a green man that I drew, and I drew some spaceships in the sky. But I'm wondering about the Greys. Like, have they stopped the abductions? Why did they stop? What is your perspectives on that?
Yes, so thank you for bringing this up. I think this is also why I feel that it's important to talk about this, because there has been different types of abductions, and it's more common than we think, unfortunately. There is bad abductions, and there are many species of greys, and some of them, yes, are do serve the dark agenda, and there are others that are actually good and will serve others. So it's important to understand the different types of gray. And for your viewers today, a book from the stars by Elena Denon, she talks about like over 100 different types of star beings, and she outlines the different types of grays, the good ones and the bad ones. So not all of them do abductions for bad purposes. Some of them do abduct their own starseed family just to check on them, or they might abduct the starseeds themselves to have like lessons. Like I remember sometimes just remember like seeing a ship and then someone talking to me, and I'm like, okay. It's just like a lesson. So there are many different types of
Have
abduction.
had abductions happen?
I remember, yeah, yeah, but it's still kind of recent. Like I just remember that maybe this year. If you guys want to try to dig into, and some people get really scared when I touched on like abductions, they don't even want to go into that. But I know some viewers might think that that's helpful for them. So quantum hypnosis would be very helpful to retrieve those memories, and you have to be at a certain level to handle that deep amount of truth. So just putting it out there, but it's not scary, right? Once you know, okay, what happened to you, then you take your power back and say, okay, I'm not going to let this fear control me. I'm going to discern the information, discern my own messages and who I'm contacting with. But it's, what did they say? Apocalypse is another word for revelation. It's not really about this crazy doomsday scenario that some people keep talking about. Like, I don't really tune into that. I tune into a great revelation. Saw the truth being shared at this time. So yes, there's good and bad grace. From my understanding, the Galactic Federation have intervened and stopped them from abducting people. So that stopped. Yeah.
I remember now that I've read that too. So for those people who are new to that, what is that Galactic Federation?
Yes. So there's also mixed opinion on Galactic Federation, but to me, Galactic Federation have helped me, like personally, and with many other starseeds that I have talked to. Galactic Federation of worlds or of light, I call them of light. I find that the Galactic Federation of worlds deals more with the disclosure movement. The Galactic Federation of light is a division of it that works with the energy. Because when I tune into them, they're always in a circle and sending love and light to Earth. So there's different divisions within this Galactic Federation, but their prime directive is non-interference, but also defending, right, those that cannot defend themselves against these higher dark beings, right? They are here to help us, and many of them put their lives on the line for us that we don't even know of. So to me, they are part of my family, and I really do think that they are benevolent. But some people feel, oh no, we don't trust it, or it's infiltrated. So again, like personal experience. So depending on how your viewer wants to view it, but to me, they are good.
You know, it is like a sci-fi story or movie because on this planet we have dark and light and so much struggle, and we have wars and etc. And then we realize that there's a war out there as well.
Yes, but good news. Good news is that the Prime Destroyer, they call the Prime Destroyer, has been eliminated from Earth. So that's why this year, a lot of you guys, even though in the chaos mode, you feel lighter, like a heavy weight lifted from your shoulder. So the leaders of the bad ones are not here anymore.
Sorry,
Whatever is left over.
nothing about this. The leader of what?
Like the dark ones. They call him the Destroyer. So they said he has been demolecularized. I don't know how they do it, but the leaders, like even the draconian leaders, they have been asked to leave the planet Earth, so they're no longer here. So that's why I wanted to take this moment to let all the starseed know, like, have hope and trust that it's going to become better. I know it looks very gloomy right now, but the leaders are gone. All we have to do now is unite as people, we the people together, and to bring forth this new Earth together. Because they don't have leaders telling them what to do anymore. So this is the era of the light workers.
Wow, this was fascinating. I haven't heard this before. I'm taking it in. So there were some leaders here that they were extraterrestrials, and they were probably collaborating with humans as well, right? Or we would assume.
Yes, yeah. Some factions, many factions of the government was under the control of these dark beings. Some of you know them as like Alpha Draconians. I don't want to meet one of them. I don't want to meet any of these darker reptilians. There are, of course, good reptoids as well, but these one, they really have like no empathy. They look at us as slaves. They wanted to enslave us, and we are not the first planet being enslaved. They have done it to many, many planets. It's very much like like those sci-fi. But in the sci-fi, they also disclose a little bit of information to us as well. So have have hope. So the leaders are not here anymore. It's just the little guys that we're clearing up. So
We might come back to it, but I wanted to speak about something else as well, the Akashic Records or Akashic Temple. I saw a video with you where you spoke about that. It's important. It's something to explore. You can learn a lot about yourself, and we can do that also through astral traveling. So I'd love to hear a bit about the Akashic Temple, because from what I understand, this temple, the wider consciousness you have, the bigger the temple is, and that we can go there when we sleep, for instance.
yes. So the Akashic Temple is not something new. Taoism, Vedism have touched upon these realms already. And so every soul has their higher self, and you have a realm of your Akashic Temple that you can access. Now, this is in a higher realm. So when you go and connect with your Akashic Temple, only you can access it. Even though I'm channeling for someone, for example, I'm not in the temple with them. I'm just seeing from my perspective. So, I've seen many people's Akashic Temple. They all look very different depending on the soul. There's treasures that from other lifetime that you might have gained. It's in the Akashic Temple. Some traditions like Buddhism and Taoism, Vedism, they also say, every thought, every act that you do, even if you feel like you're not appreciated, it is recorded in Akash. So all the good deeds that you do, it's all in the Akashic Temple, and it gives you good karma, good virtue. So it's important to kind of know about the Akashic Temple. And for healers or channelers, we use it to connect with with the person's spirit guides or Akashic guardians to draw information about their past lives or multidimensional lives. And so that's the significance of the temple. And the temple can change, right? As you evolve as a soul, yes, it can expand, it can change and morph into different, I see, sections of the Akashic Temple. It's very interesting. And there's many ways to access it: meditation, channeling. Some of the ETs themselves can travel to certain places that let you access this Akashic Temple. They also have devices that lets you access the Akashic Temple. So it seems like there's many ways to access the space and access this records that we all have as a soul.
Right. So each soul has their own temple. So it's not like I actually thought that it was one temple that we all went into, sort of. But we actually have, each and every one of us, our own temple.
That's what I see. So when I do channeling, like that's what I see. Each person have their own temple. Other times, if you do some like healing, there are other like common areas, like common temples that you can go to perform the healing. But that's from my understanding, my experience. We each have a temple.
And this is just not just human beings. It's actually for every soul there is.
Yes, every soul. To me, like I view it as we have like this all our lifetimes, and our soul, our oversoul and higher self, and then our source self, like the point that connect to source, and all of that strings into this temple.
Fascinating. I mean, just imagine all the information in there.
Yeah. I think it's beyond our comprehension, to be honest. So
Thinking about, different lives and timelines. Let's move into timelines, because you had a video where you spoke about different timelines, that we can actually change a timeline, and I find that very interesting, where actually our destiny meets the free will, and our different, quantum physics is showing us that we have infinite possibilities if we look at that as a spiritual teaching of how everything is working actually in the universe, that we have multiple versions of ourselves and multiple futures and past, and it gets really complex. How do you see our future timelines, and how can we switch a timeline, and how do we know that we've switched it or changed it?
So timeline is a big topic, right? There's like collective timeline. Let's say, if you're on a plane with a group of people, you're on your own sub timeline as part of the collective consciousness. Then, within your own timeline, there's different filaments of possible future timelines that you can tune into, kind of like train tracks. And so when we understand these timelines, like when a lot of my other channeler friends, we tune into timeline, we see them sometimes like lines. They have different colors. Sometimes we see it like movies. So here's option 1, here's option 2. If you make this choice, you go this way. When you make the choice, you go this way. So timeline itself is malleable. And when you do any type of healing, really, when you go back into the past, let's say inner child work, hypnosis, or trauma healing, we are in itself shifting the timeline already. So going back into the past, so let's say your consciousness is tuned into this story, this timeline, this experience. And sometimes the higher self would tell us, we cannot change this timeline, like we cannot change this story. However, we can shift this certain point in the experience. So the higher self would say, okay, we cannot change this meeting, this person meeting this person in this timeline, but we can change how the emotional response is once they meet the person. So there are a lot of guidance that have to come from the higher self in terms of where and when you and how much you can shift the timeline. So it's all very interesting.
Yeah. Are you speaking about the past timeline or the future timeline now?
I'm speaking about past timelines. So when we do past life healing, past life healing, or even when we do inner child work, I know your viewers know about Teal Swan. She does completion process. So that process in itself is shifting a timeline from the past. Is raising the vibration of that timeline, so you're not bound to the lower density. So yes, timeline shifting is very interesting. And if you want to go bigger, this whole thing that we're going through is a whole timeline correction. So yeah.
Right, because that I've heard that before, that we were actually staring towards one place, but now we're staring towards a more positive place.
Yes. Yes. So that's thanks to all the light workers, such as all your viewers, doing the little acts of kindness and doing the little things that raise the vibration. That's how that really help to shift our future. And you can see that in some of the older books, a lot of prophecies. They say, oh, it's going to be catastrophe, it's going to be doom and gloom. But if you read into the energy now, there will still be hiccups, but it's not as dense as where we would have been before. So we definitely have shifted into a higher timeline.
And when you said that your higher self might say that we can't change a meeting that happened in the past, does that mean that we can't change our past? Like all of a sudden, a war that happened was erased in a way in our history. That can't happen, right? That only happens in movies.
That I don't know. Like such thing of a big thing, I have never worked with a session with that yet. But if it's a timeline with war, since so many souls are involved, I think it'll be much more harder to just disconnect from it. Maybe it's possible, but I haven't had a client that has happened. So a lot of the things I learn is through sessions and firsthand channeling experience. They will let you shift small things here and there, but major things that happen, sometimes they'll be like, I'll get a sensation like, don't touch that or don't change that. I'm like, okay.
What is the most strangest experience or the biggest spiritual experience you've had when it comes to, a galactic connection that really blew your mind?
Oh, there's so many. um, I would say I will give you an example with the Venus thing that just happened recently. I all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, during my sleep state, they like Venus, look up Venus, and I was like, okay. I've already made a video about 2 years ago about Venus and Venusians, but they made me connect to Rob Potter, and him himself have also been really deep into Venus himself. And I also got the message Star of Bethlehem. I'm like, Star of Bethlehem, I've never heard of that before. What is it? And then I started to just flow with it, right? I emailed Rob and I was like, I've never reached out to, big names like that. I'm like, hey, Rob, would you like to come on and do a little interview video with me about Venusians? And I wasn't expecting him to say yes, but he said yes. And I was like, oh, okay. So that tells me our higher self, we're already working on this project in the astral for it to happen here. Then the Star of Bethlehem just keep coming up from like the Venusian material. And when Ray signed my book, he also put a Star of Bethlehem there. So sometimes your guys talk to you in a very subtle manner, like through affirmations. So those are like the yay, positive, mind-blowing moments that you can experience connecting with your cosmic guides. And other times I've shared, might be a little too much for this interview, but the Galactic Federation, one of my friends from the Galactic Federation, she helped me clear some implants, negative implants from my light body. So I used to have a lot of pain in certain spots in my body and didn't know where it come from. And I just got the message and healing message that you have to clear some implants, like multidimensional implants. And I'm like, okay. Then I just asked her for help, and her name is Eliza. She's a doctor in the Galactic Federation. And long story short,
Like a non-human.
It's not a human. Yeah, she's a galactic being. And I reached out to her because I know her in another lifetime as my Arcturian self. So we were friends in that lifetime. It's so complicated, I know, but bear with me. And I told her, like, Eliza, I need help. I have these implants that I don't know how to get rid of, but it's bothering me a lot. And please help me. And then I just had this experience where I'm lying down and I felt these things being pulled out of my body. And I talked about this in my other videos, just pulling, and it was excruciating. And I was like twitching at times. But after that, I felt a big difference. So I knew that she helped me big time with removing those multidimensional implants. So those are like the other mind-blowing stories that I have. But
Amazing. I'm just so fascinated by everything you're experiencing, because obviously I haven't experienced the same. I've had some beautiful meditation experiences and spiritual experiences, but I must say that sometimes I wonder what happens when I sleep, because sometimes I have very vivid dreams and I can wake up with some, I don't know, stuff on my body. Like it seems like I've been itching the whole night, or some marks on my body that I've been wondering about. And I remember one night I couldn't walk on my, I couldn't walk. Like I got up and I couldn't walk at all. Like there was something weird happening with my legs. And I was like, oh man, like my body's not functioning. And I was totally awake at that time. But my intuition told me that this will pass. You just have to go back to sleep and it will be all right. And somehow I was sort of in a sleep state, but I was awake at the same time. But I was like, when you have a feeling of that dream is just like right there, you can just go to it right there. So I kind of have like a connection to my higher self or my subconsciousness or what that told me it's going to be okay, but something is working on you right now. It was sort of like I was in a process of something. Something was happening with me. So I should have slept, but I needed to go to the bathroom. So I can't explain it, but I just so much is going on when
so much. Yes, yes. Yeah, in the sleep time, sometimes they do healing. So the Octurians do that a lot with their star family. They will actually check in with their Octurian starseed and see how they're doing. So sometimes you feel these vibrations, and other times, like ringing in the ear as well, they would try to attune your frequency to their vibration if you give permission. Other times, we have been, poisoned by our air, food, and water, and things like that can affect us. Like the implants that I spoke about, they were negative, and a lot of times we have these implants because when the dark ones, they don't do this anymore, it's got shut down, but they broadcast negative thoughts. And if you have these imprints, it's like a satellite, you receive it. So if you ever have like thoughts like, why am I all of a sudden have such a negative thought? I was feeling pretty good, and all of a sudden I have negative thought. Then it could be like you have a receptor or an implant that's catching onto this frequency. So that was what's happening with me. I would feel very good, and then like some negative thoughts would come out of nowhere. So after those implant removal with my galactic friend, then I don't have those interference anymore. So I know it sounds very out there, but some of them do help, and not all of them are dark and scary. So
Yeah. And let's end this on the bright side. Who are you working with also that are of higher beings? You mentioned the Pleiadians, the Arcturians in the master class. Are there other beings that are helping you, or are there some specific beings that you work more with than others, etc.?
Yes, actually, out of percentage, I don't work with galactic beings that much. I actually work with Mother Kuan Yin, Lord Jesus, and Archangel Michael the most. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would advise to your viewers too. Is like the galactic realm is fun, but you also need to have a lot of skill under your belt to discern these information. So start with the high vibrational beings first, which is the archangels, the angels, the ascended masters. And once you're in their vortex of light, then slowly open up to the cosmic stuff. Because then you're always going to have that connection to the higher being, and they can purify it. They can help you and raise your vibration and strengthen your light body.
That makes sense. And you're mentioning that a lot in the masterclass as well, that, connecting with the cosmic self is one thing, but connecting with galactic or cosmic guides is another thing that you need to have actually worked a lot on yourself. And I think the discussion today shows that there are a lot of different races out there, and you need to sort of know what you're opening up to. And I think it's really important that you're saying that and focusing on that, because it can feel so exciting, like for especially people who are very, open, sensitive, empaths, have clairs, and then they open too fast. That's scary. So I think it's really important to raise awareness that we need to be careful with these things, and know what we're doing, and having a guide that's been doing this before. It's nothing to play with, I think.
Yes, thank you for bringing that point. Yes, it's definitely something that you need practice. You need to know what you're doing. It's just like astral travel, in shamanism. They don't let you do astral travel until you've done some training. So we have to take it with integrity. That's the spiritual maturity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And for all of you out there, if you want to dive deeper, you can read all about Tiffany's masterclass, where she's giving you 2 meditations where you meet your cosmic self and also your cosmic guide, how to do it. She's going into depth about the different races, even more races than we covered today. There are many, many more. So if this is something you're drawn to, please check it out below in the video description. And Tiffany, what are you working on right now? How is the new year looking for you?
Right now, I am being in service to humanity through sessions. So, through your membership, actually, there is some links that you can tune into where you can book in private sessions with me. There's a special membership discount through Yanika's membership that you can sign up for a private reading. There's also another bonus coupon code through her membership as well for my class, Channel Divine Messages with Spirit Guides. So in that class, we will talk more about the Akashic Temple. We'll talk about protection, light body, working with your animal totem, and so forth. So those are for those that are interested to practice channeling. And if you are somewhat a beginner and you're looking for a little bit more, that would be a great course to tune into.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for all your work and for stepping forward, speaking about these topics that are not everyday topics like milk and butter, you know?
Thank you, Yannika. Yes, thank you, Yannika, for providing this safe, non-judgmental space for these messages to be broadcasted, and it's an honor. Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching, everybody. Much light from the US and Norway. Bye-bye.